this is a world that I'm not really supposed to be in, but somehow I'm here. And my mom one time had to call school officials to ask them about something, and I remember that she didn't want to do it because she was embarrassed about her English. Like, she didn't want to make a mistake. That stuck with me for a really long time, because I was just like, my mom shouldn't have to be embarrassed about that. But like, she was, and it really stopped her.
You're filming me?
Yeah.
Wait, what do you want me to say? Oh, I hate it when people say my English is good. It makes me feel uncomfortable because I'm confused about my identity in the first place, and I don't need other people to confuse it for me.
But like, every time someone asks me where I come from and I say it's not America, even I was born here, but I say I'm like Nigerian, they always say, I even get no you're not.
I feel I'm American. I think I'm American, and I actually am American, but like, I think people don't see me as American.
I'm also American. I'm mostly Cuban and American. I've gone to Colombia more than Cuba. But honestly, like when you live in Miami, it's just like this spillover of Cuba, like the backwaters of Cuba. Okay. So I'm mostly Cuban American, which is really interesting because Cubans are like known to have like shitty Spanish and speak really loud and like trip over their words because we're just so excited all the time and have like cotton mouths for some reason. And yeah, I don't really know what that's about. I think it's funny because that's completely true, especially for me.
Okay, so my name is Carl Sully-Guerrier, and I have been living in this country for about 14 years. Hopefully you're able to understand me because I think I learned English, pretty good, and now I got the language down pat, But as you've mentioned to me, I do speak 4 languages. I speak English, Spanish, Creole, and French.
Hi, I'm Viviana. You just go? Yeah. Okay. So I was born in Puerto Rico and I lived there for 5 years. And I learned Spanish and English at the same time. But my mom, I use Spanish mostly because it's Puerto Rico. But my mom preferred English because she's grew up in Miami, daughter of Cuban immigrants, so she preferred English. So I learned them both at the same time. But I definitely say that's like in the beginning, Spanish was my primary language. Like there's old videos of like me as a kid, and my mom was like talking to me in English, and I'm like responding in Spanish, like like an asshole.
Yeah. It's also interesting because I'm Chicanx, like Chicanx people are just like less likely to know Spanish.
Oh, okay.
Because also my family's from the part of Mexico we now called Texas, which is like one of my favorite lines. So my family had to didn't need to speak Spanish for a long time now. But if my mom's dad was from actual Mexico, then that would be different. I would be much more likely to know Spanish now. Okay. But so the fact that I don't also is kind of a check against me. Okay. Because if I did know Spanish, then I could theoretically code switch into it in some way. And I can't to some extent because I understand it. When I listen to it, I can pretty easily respond. But I'm terrified to speak it.
So my parents didn't want to teach me this dialect, this Filipino dialect called Ilocano, because they wanted my English to be perfect, so that I wouldn't be at a disadvantage.
And there was a very big period of my life where I would go back to Puerto Rico and I just would not speak Spanish to my family because I was insecure about it. I'm slowly starting to get back into it, but it's still this just generally not belonging anywhere. You can go to Puerto Rico and my Spanish has obviously become a little bit more Americanized because I've lived here, and they know and it's just it's just this underlying oh, you're American, you're not Puerto Rican. Yeah, and then I come from Colombia also, which is interesting because they have the best Spanish or whatever a lot of people say. I don't speak that one. They know when I go there. They're always correcting me, which is really annoying. I'm not proud of that side at all.
When I tell people I live in Brooklyn, I've lived in Brooklyn my whole life, they're like, no, you haven't. You don't have a Brooklyn accent. And that's another thing. Yeah, is that so weird. Am I supposed to sound like Robert De Niro? How am I supposed to sound? I don't know. I don't know what a Brooklyn accent is. I don't think any of us know what a Brooklyn accent is. I don't think any of us know what a Nigerian American, all of these accents are just ideas. Yeah. And if I identify as Nigerian, then I am Nigerian. My parents are from there. I'm from there. So I think people should respect where people are from. You know?
And like I just remember in school, like knowing English was like the cool thing. Like Viviana, English, and I'm like sun, moon, and they're like ooh. Then when I moved to the U.S., it was different. It was like, you know Spanish, like say something. Oh my god.
I guess it's like a chip on my shoulder to not be white and to not have this language like bonding that I could have had with like Filipino language, like Tagalog or Ilocano, and so like I don't fit in anywhere.
Yeah. So for me, I think that it's just language can be a barrier. You know, I still feel like it is. There are times when I am very hard on myself, and I'm like, gosh, I should have pronounced that better. I should have said that better. Especially at a place like Columbia, you know, with all the papers that we're writing. The way I speak and the way I think, because I do come from a different culture, it shows in my paper, you know. And I do agree that there's just like this one way of like having to write and having to speak, and I'm not completely comfortable with it because it makes me feel like the way I speak and the way I think, no one is able to understand me, you know. And no one is. Not saying that no one is, but it tends to be that way where I have to explain myself and explain what I mean by what I say.
So what was I gonna say? So I would get used to writing in Spanish, and then when I would write essays in English, my whole sentences are just like kind of backwards, and my professors always say I sound like I'm leading up to something, and they're like, it's really uncomfortable to read like the subjects at the end or like everything at the end. It's just like the whole like essay feels flat. And just like, yeah, everything is just like flipped or whatever. So I get a lot of points off. And I go to the writing center a lot for that, which I didn't understand it was that until I like started taking the Spanish writing class, and I was like, oh, it makes sense here. I'm not getting points off here.
And in school and academic settings, I've noticed that when I go to write papers, it's not so much the case anymore because at Columbia, I've had to write so much that my writing has just gotten better. But before coming to Columbia, I would get a lot of times like, this sentence is just really awkward. But because I look white, I don't think my teachers ever really, and I was much less vocal about being like, hey, I'm mixed race. So I would just sort of pretend to be white. And my teachers just didn't know, so they would just, I don't know, I think they were just like, this girl, her English is just weird sometimes. But for me, it was like, oh no, my English is kind of weird because when when I'm at home, I speak in simpler sentences. So then when I went to try to write academic papers, I was like, I don't understand complex sentences. Like, what are clauses? I still don't know. I don't know.
I remember being like 12 years old and like knowing that my parents were in the country for like, how was I, like 20 plus years, and being like, why can't they speak perfect English yet? And being like, you know, like whenever they came to school or something for me, like, are they gonna be understood by my teachers or something? Like,
so I went at the beginning of the semester. There was like a opening night ceremony for like Latin American Heritage Month.
Yeah.
And I went to it, and I sat down at like a table full of like freshmen, I think, and they just all turned to me and they were like, why are you here? But like, luckily I was I wouldn't have been able to handle that as a freshman. I would have like, probably gotten up and run away. Like, oops, I'm so sorry. Wrong space. But instead I was like, well, you know, like I am part Mexican, and like I'm here to like, you know, take part in the experiences that I do have and like feel those, but also like to honor the experiences that I haven't had.
Oh, okay. And then words you mispronounced?
Words I mispronounce all the time. So as a kid, I did most of my reading for Harry Potter because I loved it so much. And like, since I read a lot, like there were not enough like native English speakers around me. So I learned English through reading. Yeah. So words I mispronounce is salmon, southern, rations. I'm sure there are more.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so yeah, now I'd say like Spanglish is more of a thing, but still in the U.S. Like I'm still definitely cap it more in the States. Although recently, Thanksgiving, got hella fucking drunk, spoke the best Spanish of my life to my grandmother. I think she was shook. I think that's all you need to know.
Like, I feel like with me, like, 'cause my name is really long, so people still, like, people look at no one can say my name ever. When you first see it, you still can't say my name. Like, when people see my name, they're like, I can't pronounce this, so you know I'm from a different country. But I feel like I started, like, being really proud, I guess, I would say 13 to 14. So I guess freshman year in high school, I think high school is, like, it's like a shift. I think that's, like, the age where a lot of people no one really discovers themselves in high school, but you start to really try to discover yourself. And that's when I started saying, no, my name's Chama, and I'll say my last name, Onyebwani, and I would be so proud of it. And I feel like that happened at 14. So I feel like that's not a weird age to go through that, but I feel like the shift happened. My parents have also always taught me to be proud of who I am, and I was to a certain extent, but I think I had an awakening in high school when I was like, I'm super proud. I'm super proud. Happened in high school. Like, I'm gonna correct anyone that says my name wrong, which was like everyone. So it was a lot of work. So yeah, I feel like my whole proudness of like where I came from started in freshman year of high school. So like 14. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.